Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm still alive. I feel like I have to say that at the beginning of all of my videos because I take very long sabbaticals from YouTube, and I don't know, it's the nature of the beast. If I had more free time, I would upload things more often, talk about things more often, but in particular, this last year has been very difficult, and of course, it was basically the year that I was supposed to really get YouTube going for me, but whatever. It is what it is. It's going to be a very long video today, guys. I have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a very gym-centric video, so if there's a lot of stuff you've been wondering about me personally, we're going to talk about a lot about that. We're going to talk about my personal life. We're going to talk about video games. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about The Mandalorian and Disney Plus. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff, the Star Wars fandom at large, and what 2020 is going to look like for me, and hopes going into the future, all kinds of stuff. It's probably, my guess is that this will be my longest video that I've ever done, but we'll see how it shakes out at the end. I guess we'll find out. So, yeah, this is definitely, and I say this all the time, but, if you're on your way to work, grab a thermos of your favorite coffee or morning beverage of choice, and settle in. This is probably going to last you to and from work, maybe for a couple days, who knows. But if you're at home, please do go grab your brew of choice. Sadly, I do not have any ale with me. I only have water, because I figured since I'm going to be talking for a long time, I should have something that's a little bit more better for my throat. So, yeah, here we go. How do I start discussing this stuff? Well, I guess we should just jump into it. As a lot of you guys know, this last year I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. Technically, that was in August of 2018 is when that happened, but more of the effects didn't manifest until the beginning of 2019. That's when it hit me the most, and I was out of work for a long time, from like March until September. And can I just say, like, how fucked insurance companies are? Like, this one that was dealing with my disability for work was just an absolute atrocious ring around the rosy game, and I absolutely abhorred it. It was awful, and a lot of people seem to think that should encourage me more to be for Medicare for all for some reason, even though it doesn't, because it's not related. This is more of a case of my particular disease that I got, Lyme's disease, not being recognized by the greater medical community as a neurological slash, what you'd call it, muscular disorder, which is what post-Lyme's disease tends to cause in some people. Now, some people that get Lyme's, they develop totally different symptoms. From what I'm reading online, and you could look this stuff up for yourself, it's all over the place. It's, you could get, problems with bowel movements. You can have problems remembering things. You can have all kinds of just crazy stuff, rashes, like all this stuff. And the medical community is very much out on proper diagnoses for this. And because of that, it leads insurance companies to think, okay, well, since it's nothing we can physically see, then we don't have to cover you, or, things to that nature. And that's basically what it ended up happening. So it was very difficult. It was a very trying time. Luckily, I have a lot of very kind, very giving friends and family that were around me for that period, and I can't thank them enough. I literally can't thank them enough. I still have artwork that I need to get to for them, for some of them, because it was the least I could do, and I've been meaning to get to it, but other things have occurred since then. So a lot of you know about the Lymes thing. I guess minor update on that. I'm more or less okay. I'm fine. I still have days where my joints, I feel like an 80-year-old man, and that's more what I deal with, is joint pain and fatigue. So those elements absolutely suck, because I hate wasting time sleeping. I like sleep, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people like it way more than I do. I typically only want about 6 to 7 hours. Because I just feel like sleep's a waste of time. I don't know. Maybe that's just me and I'm weird, but lately, quote unquote, not nearly as much in the more recent past, but further on in the beginning of 2019, it was very difficult. I would randomly just get so tired and just take like 3 to 4 hour naps. It was ridiculous, and I'd still feel exhausted. I'd wake up and still feel horrible, and walking around was difficult. My hips, and this is still something I'm kind of dealing with. I don't know if it's because I'm walking on concrete all day at work or what, but it definitely, the joint pain is real. I bought new shoes, and I'm on medication for that. That I take very lightly. I don't like overdoing medication, but you can see back here on this little shelf here, I've got a little smorgasbord of pills, which is great. So that happened, and then so I have to talk about my mom for a minute. I've said in a few videos in the past, some of you guys have heard me talk about her before. And I'm going to try not to get too emotional talking about this because it's kind of hard. But my mom was one of my best friends. And I'm speaking in the past tense because she passed away. My mom passed in early November. And it really, really fucking sucked. I haven't lived with my parents since I was like 16. I moved out and lived with my then girlfriend when I was 16, and my mom and my stepdad and my stepbrother and stepsister, they all moved down to Missouri to be closer to my grandma and my grandpa, and a lot of my extended family is kind of down there in the South. I think I have some family in Tennessee and Arkansas. And there's a lot of my mom's side of the clan is down there. So she moved down there, and after she retired from the Navy, she had started working at Walmart. She worked at the Walmart distribution center, actually, in Arkansas, in Bentonville, which is like it's like the main hub for Walmart. If you know anything about Walmart, that's like where it's like that's the big deal down there. So she was working for them for a few years, but my mom had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And if you know anybody who's been affected by that disease, you know how awful it is. And it's manageable for some people, I guess with certain people who have, better genes maybe than my family does, but it really attacked my mom hard. And my head's just swimming with discussion about how much I think they over-medicated her and all this shit. But anyway, she had arthritis, and she'd been living with it since, and I guess that was when it really came to a head, was maybe like 2007 or something, somewhere around that neighborhood is kind of when it hit, and then it just got worse and worse and worse as the years have gone on, and to the point where eventually, she had to retire flat out from Walmart and just live off of her Social Securities and the medical or allotment that she would get from the military per month, since she was a 20+ year veteran. So, losing my train of thought. Okay, so she's down there, and it's gotten worse. And this year, so this was back in March. Yeah, it was late March. My mom was on some sort of medication that was basically the equivalent to being in chemotherapy. It was attacking all of her white blood cells in her system, basically breaking down DNA and trying to rebuild it because of this arthritis that she had. It was really bad. Well, what ended up happening was, I still don't even have all the facts on this, so there's still some areas here of knowledge that I'm not privy to, but she went septic, and her body was attacking her. She went into a coma, and I live all the way up in Pittsburgh, so they're about a 13-hour drive from me. My sister's on the phone talking to me. She's hysterical. I woke up to so many phone calls that day saying, hey, we don't know if your mom's going to make it. We don't know if she's going to make it. And I got in the car. I just packed up whatever I had very quickly, and I was on leave still from my medical issue that I was dealing with. I got in the car and I just drove. Thankfully, at that point I had some money in the bank, but yeah, I did the 13-hour haul all the way down to where they live in Missouri. And yeah, she went into a coma. While she was under, she had a heart attack and a mild stroke, they think. Also, while she was under, and the doctors didn't tell us this initially, but there was about an 8% chance that she would survive that ordeal. And I was down there for a total of 2.5 to 3 weeks. I'm not exactly sure how long I was down there, but she made it. She pulled through at the time, and beat all of these medical odds. I'm still in awe of the medical team that was down there that helped her. I don't even know how they managed to pull her out of that, but she's in there, she's sick, and she's not all there, obviously. I mean, even when she woke up, she still wasn't there. She was able to look around a little bit, and I think she knew who I was briefly, but then I talked to her after the fact when she got when she was released eventually from the hospital, and she said she had no memory of anything that had happened in the hospital. So it was very touch and go. But anyway, so they release her into the care of this rehab facility, and she stayed there for a few more months, a couple months to a few months, and helping her get better and try to get used to at least standing on her leg, because what had ended up happening is her left leg got really, really bad. It had all of these problems with the sepsis, and they ended up having to lance her foot because of all of this pus and stuff that was just building up, and it was gruesome. It was awful. And they kept her at this rehab facility to help her get better, but then they sent her home into the care of my stepdad, and they moved out of the existing house that they were in because there was this long flight of steps in order to get up into the house, and it was on a slope, and the driveway was very tilted, and it was going to be difficult for her to get around that anymore. So they moved into this smaller apartment that was closer to my sister, actually. And all the while my grandma and my sister and my stepdad were just doing the best that they could to take care of her once they let her out of this rehab facility. And this rehab facility, they sounded like they were mostly great. I remember my mom telling me that there was a couple people there that when they were working, it was awesome because they were very attentive. They helped her out a lot. They had excellent personalities, and I can't thank those people enough for being as helpful as they were to my mom when she was in there. But then when she was released at home, because of the fact that she was tapped into this disability fund, and I don't know, some other legalese, the VA couldn't do anything else because all they had was, what her, reimbursement was every month, her veteran pay. So she was more or less, from what I understand, tapped out financially. There was nothing else that they could do to help her. And she was taking this medication. What was happening was her lungs were filling with fluid constantly. It was this water would build up in her lungs, and she had to take these pills that help manage that. And we didn't know how long that was going to go, but that's what she was on. Well, these pills were they just got so astronomically expensive to the point that they couldn't afford them. And I guess they had interfaced with the nurses or the doctors at some point that said that, well, you're going to need these, but you can kind of mitigate the dose as much as you need until you can afford more. And the whole time, my stepdad's working his ass off to try to both take care of her and go to work and earn money, because he was the only income earner for their house at the time. And then my sister and my grandma would rotate shifts going over to her house to help her just get up to go to the bathroom. She was getting a little bit better, but she needed help to get bathed and to go to the bathroom. And I've never really talked about my mom in depth on here, but there's a lot of people who know me in real life that know I talk about my mom all the time. She was so optimistic about everything. It didn't matter what was going on in her life, how bad things got and were for her. She was always optimistic and bright-eyed and looking to the future, and she had this attitude of don't worry about it. And God, it's I'm gonna do my best not to get too emotional here because it's been a little bit enough time that a lot of the big breakdowns are behind me. I think, but I just want to be honest with you guys and let you know what's been going on and give you a little peek behind the curtain. But anyway, she was very optimistic, and even when things were bad, she still would say like, "I feel good. I feel so much better. I feel better than I have in a long time. Things are going very well, etc., etc." And then it was November 4th. Same routine that they were in. My stepdad was going to work. She made sure that mom was propped up and okay in bed. He had helped her go to the bathroom, and my grandma was scheduled to show up there in about maybe 20 to 30 more minutes, if that, maybe an hour at most. And so he leaves, and she's fine. He calls her, and she picks up the phone and says, or he tells her, "Hey, just so you know, there's traffic out here on whatever road they were on, and it's probably going to take Grandma a while to get there. Just so just be aware of that." And I guess my mom said, "Okay, that's fine," and hung up the phone. In between hanging up the phone from that, and then I guess 15 to 20 minutes later, it could be as much as a half hour. I'm not exactly sure of the timetable. But it wasn't too much more time. Apparently, she had fallen asleep and had a massive heart attack in her sleep. And she passed away. So, and my grandma's the one who found her. It was very rough. And I can only imagine what my grandma was going through, but my mom was gone by the time Grandma got there. She called my stepdad. He raced back home. Obviously the ambulance was called, and they more or less pronounced her dead at the scene, or maybe when they got to the hospital. It was a little bit after that, but regardless, she passed away. That was a very big hit to me. If any of you guys are close to your family, you and have lost somebody, what I'm going through, and I hate to be a part of that club, but I think there's kind of this, I don't know, pragmatism that I've always had, where it's like, I don't know, like I always felt like you do bury your parents. As morbid as that sounds, like it feels, I don't know, like this is something that almost everybody goes through at some point in their life. And my mom was only 55. She was not old. And, she had me when she was 20. She had me very young. And, she just, it was too soon. It was way too soon. She had so much life left to live. And, it's one of those things that I'll have to, make peace with and wrestle with for the rest of my life, and carry on her legacy as best as I can. Now, the silver lining is that in regards to the legacy of the family, my brother has, let's see, 1, 2, 3. He has 3 children and soon to have a 4th. So he's doing great, continuing on the family legacy. And my sister has a son as well. So, you're talking 5 grandchildren. Me, I'm 33. and still haven't met Mrs. Wright, so the idea of children to me is kind of like, and it has always been up until I guess fairly recently kind of a non sequitur, but lately I've thought, well, I could probably have a kid. Regardless, the family legacy will continue on, and I think that's the most important thing, is that the names of our family go on, and remembering my mom. So, sorry for the really heavy intro to this video. I'm so sorry for that. But obviously it explains more why I have not been present here. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you still see me post on there from time to time, at least once a day or so. I'm talking shit on there, but on here, obviously that's been the main reason. Also work, I'm back to work at full capacity of what I was doing when I left, so all that's been going strong. And yes, so I just wanted to say a little bit about that, and just address that elephant for myself, and I guess maybe put it into video form. It might be cathartic for me to kind of look back at this and say, hey, that's what I was going through at the time. So, all right. So, yes, yeah, I went down there for the funeral. I did all that. It was full colors. We had, they had the Navy there to do, the gun salute, fold the flag, that whole deal. And she's buried down in Missouri, and it's a place that now has deep significance for me and my family. So that's a place that I will be visiting on a somewhat regular basis. I'm planning another trip there next year with my brother. He lives out in California, so we're gonna try to meet up and get down there next year. But anyway, okay, so sorry to get super heavy there. It's just, I felt like I had to talk about it. So that happened. But enough of the bad stuff. Let's talk about stuff that's good. And you know what's good? The Mandalorian's good. Guys, I'm shocked that it's good. And it's not great. I don't think it's the best thing I've ever seen, but it's certainly the best Star Wars we've had since, I guess, Rogue One, and before that, since the original trilogy. The Clone Wars. I really like the Clone Wars, but so it's been the best Star Wars we've had in a very long time, and I'm just, it's Dave Filoni. That's why it's Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and that union I knew would produce something that was what we were looking for in Star Wars. So, yes, it's been great, but I will say I have some issues with it. Okay, I have some problems with this show, and we're going to talk about those. And the first problem I have with The Mandalorian, we'll get into the positives to kind of, put a cap on it, but let's get the negatives out of the way first. The first thing I don't like, there's a lot of wink and nod shit. I hate that. I don't like when franchises are constantly nudging you and saying, hey, you remember that? And like, I'm going to quote a line from another movie. I fucking hate that shit. It takes me out of it. And I'm someone who is very much into, lore of these franchises, or into the immersion, as it were. My immersion. I'm very much into that. And if you break that for me, it just annoys me. I don't get super pissed about it, but it does annoy me. And there's been a couple episodes so far where they're doing that, especially this last one, episode 5, I think it was. I mean, like, he's directly quoting Boba Fett, and because they go to Tatooine, and I'm not going to spoil too much stuff, but, if you haven't seen it, but they definitely do too much of the wink and nod shit. Another thing that I'm not a super huge fan of is that they kind of make, Baby Yoda, or the child, whatever, marketing term you want to use for it, the small Yoda-like creature, is given too much prominence. And I understand that maybe a lot of people don't agree with that, and they like that he's such a central. I mean, he is literally so far central to the plot. You know, he's the MacGuffin, if you will. We don't know how that's going to end up in the long term, but he is the reason that this Mandalorian has done what he has done, and, you know, gone against this guild that he was a part of, and, you know, done all these things. Why he's doing everything, but the memes are a little too focused on. I don't like the fact that he's supposed to be this big, like, buy the toy, you know, like, oh, look how cute he is. He's fucking adorable. Don't get me wrong. I love Baby Yoda. It's super cute. Okay, you have to be a heartless bastard not to think that thing isn't adorable. Especially the thing it just moves. What I love about it is it's not doing too much of the goo goo gaga shit. It is a little bit, but not to like a ridiculous degree. But when it does baby like things that, you know, like when it's playing with the switches in his ship and he keeps having to turn it off, that was hilarious. I thought that was funny. That was a cute moment. You know, you have this hard ass Mandalorian. That contrast there, I love that. And that's another thing I want to get into eventually when we talk about the positives, is a lot of the inspirations for the show, and why I like, you know, a lot of the samurai film references and Western film references that it has. But anyway, back to things I don't like. I don't like some of the choices to make the show as short as it is, because a lot of these episodes are like 30 to 38 minutes in length, and I know that that's kind of Dave Filoni's forte, but it's a little too less time for me in a world post Game of Thrones. Like, I feel like a show like this with this kind of budget and production needs to be at least an hour, and that's probably just me being greedy, but I do feel like this show would be serviced better by being longer in length. I really feel like 30 to 38 minutes is just way too short. You're kind of forced into these scenarios that end up playing out like a Saturday morning cartoon, and to some degree I'm fine with that. That's kind of why I like the show in some ways, actually, and that, as you know, as hypocritical as that is to say, it's in some ways that's to its strength, but in a lot of ways it's to its faults, because I do feel like it would be a better show if it were an hour long, because then you can show stories that have a little bit more, you know, that have legs to them, a little bit more character development could happen, whereas in these 30-minute episodes you don't have a lot of time to develop a character, and then you get kind of cringe moments where they're on, you know, when they're in that one world where there's like a group of farmers, and it's very much Seven Samurai. It's straight out of a Kurosawa film, and they have to train the farmers to defend themselves. And there's just this one random woman there who is extremely capable and is the only one who knows how to use weapons, and, you know, basically emasculates all the men. There's still some of that shit that goes on, and I still hate that crap. I still hate the idea that men are just these goofy retards in modern cinema and entertainment, who have to be upstaged constantly by strong female stereotypes. But it wasn't so egregious that it, like, made me hate the episode. There were a lot of people out there, like John Mallon and, you know, Ethan Van Sciver, who were way fucking overreacting about that episode. Just fucking the nuclear takes that they had and have about a lot of this show, I think, are way out of line with what the show is. I think they're not seeing the forest for the trees, and so my take is nowhere near that bad. I will agree that there have been writing issues in some of these episodes, and I don't like that the focus is mostly on, you know, cute baby memes and kind of making the Mandalorian in one moment this super badass, and in this other moment seemingly randomly incapable. And it feels contrived a lot of the times when they write him that way, because it's not, you can't show me in the first 2 episodes that Mandalorian, the first 3 episodes, and then you stumble into this, like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just taking blaster shots to the chest and I don't know how to fucking do anything. And you can argue that that's also kind of a character thing too. You know, he's not this, you know, unstoppable, you know, Darth Vader character. Okay, I can buy that. But at the same time, that contrast can't be that as severe as it is sometimes. I'm telling, like, there's certain episodes that I'm like, did someone steal his outfit? Because that's not the same dude. I don't know. Those are just gripes I have with the show. That's basically it, though. Those are basically the smallest gripes that I have. What I love about the show. What I love about this show is that it feels like Star Wars. It feels like I'm back. I'm sorry, I spit all over my microphone there. It feels like I'm back to when Star Wars was good, with the Clone Wars era, where things can be fun and goofy, but they're serious. You're in a galaxy, a world, though. We'll say world just to keep it short. You're in a world where the scope of governance is so vast that it can't possibly be enforced on the scale that we're looking at. This isn't Warhammer. In Star Wars, it's a little bit more realistic in the sense that the governance is not as absolute. So when you get to the Outer Rim territories, obviously it's going to be a little bit more of a lawless endeavor. I like that kind of colonial comparison. Like we settled on the East Coast. As you move further to the west, it was a little bit more of a no man's land, especially in the plains of Central America. When the Native Americans, the Comanches, they just run roughshod over everybody. It feels more like that, like you're watching a Western or like an early samurai film. I love that, because that was the whole inspiration for Star Wars, was, a hidden fortress and all these things that George Lucas loved about early samurai and Western films. And what did I say in that that Mandalorian video, the Disney Plus video? All I want is a fistful of dollars in outer space. That's all I want. And I feel like mostly, at least, if I had to kind of give a percentage here, 85% of the show has been that for me. You're showing a sense of lawlessness, people trying to make do with what little they have. That was one of the biggest draws of a place like Mos Eisley in the first place when I first saw Star Wars. It's like, wow, anything can happen here. That dude just killed a dude in a bar, and barely anyone blinked twice. They all kind of looked over because probably there was just a noise. I'm like, oh, that guy's dead. And then just went about their day. That whole concept is fucking cool. So you take that and put it on a macro level, and it's going to make for great entertainment. So, yeah, huge fan of the kind of the atmosphere that they're building for the show. Another thing I really like is the fact that they're showing Mandalorian culture. That's so fucking cool. We're finally getting past the ums and I wonders, and we're actually putting something to film that is canonical. Now, if you're into the Star Wars fandom, as I guess deeply as I am, you know about places like, the Mandalorian Mercs Club, the Dented Helmet, these websites that have been kind of the curators of Boba Fett and the extrapolation of that into the Mandalorian culture or lore. And they really, like, everything that they do is kind of, they've only been getting crumbs for the longest time. I mean, it was a feast during the Clone Wars era, because at least Dave Filoni gave enough crap about that to write about them, and they were central to the plot in later seasons, and that was great. And then in Rebels, you had Sabine and a little bit of that going on with her. So clearly, Filoni loves Mandos, and that's why they were there. I mean, it's great. I love that. I'm a huge fan of that kind of culture, and everyone's like, oh my fucking god, Boba Fett's overrated, blah blah blah. He didn't do anything. All he does is get his ass kicked in the film. No, listen. The reason why Boba Fett was cool was because he wasn't standing there telling you his politics. He wasn't telling you the kills he had. He wasn't bragging about it. He looked like a blue-collar dude, just going about his day, doing what he did in as efficient way as he could. And that mysticism around him is why he was cool. Plus, it helped that he looked cool as shit. I mean, come on, that outfit is iconic. So you take the mysticism surrounding his culture, and you mix it with the aesthetic of Mandalorians, and you have a recipe for lots of action figures and lots of cool stories. More importantly, lots of really cool stories. So, big fan of them diving more into the Mandalorian mythos, and I hope we get to see more of that. going further, because the Mandos that they did show, and I think it was like episode 3 or 4, was great. Jon Favreau was dressed up as the Heavy, and I thought that was excellent. It's really cool. I'm big fan of that. What else do I like about it? I like Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda is adorable, as I said before. It sometimes is to the detriment of the show, as I've admitted, but it sometimes is to the benefit of the show, because you have that contrast between the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. And what I wanted to say earlier was, you're basically looking at something like Wolf and Cub, or this strong, stoic mentor taking on a innocent, that has no protection, that has no means of protecting itself. And that contrast has always been very popular in pop culture and in just stories in general, because it plays to the idea that even the strongest men have the biggest hearts. Not always, but they can. And playing against the stereotype that you would have of, say, the barbarian being this, I only want blood and death, and that kind of deal. That was one of the things that made Conan very interesting as well. But anyway, so that contrast is very alluring to me. I love that. I mean, like I said, I'm a big fan of Wolf and Cub, and I think there's some similarities there. And as I mentioned earlier, of course, the samurai film influence, the Kurosawa films, you have, even the spaghetti western influences that came later are present here, because that's all I wanted. Just do Clint Eastwood in space, and I'm set. I'm happy. That's all I want. That's all I want. I don't want fucking cringy progressive politics. I don't want any of that crap. All I want is just this guy doing what he does. I want a convincing and satisfying story arc for that character, and I will be happy. That's all I want. And so far, that's what I've been getting, and I'm very pleased to report that I am a big fan of it, and I'm glad I subbed to Disney Plus for this. And I know Dave Filoni can only be in one place at one time. He is a fellow Pittsburgher, though, so shout out to that. But I would like for him to get on Moon Knight. I would like for all the best writers and only the best writers to get on Moon Knight, please, because I don't want that show to suck, and I want to be able to report the same enthusiasm that I have for this show for that show. I want to be able to tell you how much I love that show, because hopefully it's good. Okay, so that's my thoughts on The Mandalorian. Disney Plus in general, what do I think of it so far? It's okay. It's, all the, it's the meat and potatoes are all there. Everything, all the Marvels, not all of the Marvel stuff, but most of it's there. And I think that's probably due to contracts with places like Amazon and Netflix and that sort of thing. But most of it's there. The meat and potatoes are there. And it was really cool. A couple days I've gone back and just watched. I mean, I own some of the Blu-rays, but I went back and watched the original Iron Man and watched the original Captain America, and why I liked the beginning of the Phase 1 stuff. Why I really liked that stuff was because not only are origin stories awesome, but they had a reverence for the comic books that the later Marvel films got rid of, and I didn't like that. I mean, back then, the biggest complaints for those films were the fact that, aesthetically, that they, like Captain America, his outfit wasn't exactly, he wasn't just in the onesie, even though they kind of rolled that into the plot of the movie, which I thought was super clever. But the adherence, not the strict adherence, but at least the reverence for the comic material that they're based on was there. So it was really cool to go back and just watch those and why I liked those movies. And then, going back and watching some classics I love, like The Rocketeer. I've been diving into some Nat Geo stuff, too. So that's been pretty cool. If you hear a dog barking in the background, I apologize. That's my roommate's dog, and all it does is bark. So, apologies. Moving on from Disney Plus. This year has been an awesome year for video games. I mean, there have been so many good things coming out. A lot of things that have really... Not a lot of things I've been there's a lot of, reviewers and things like that they have to, as soon as the new game comes out, you gotta play it. While I think that that's great because you get to taste so many varieties of games, I feel like it doesn't allow people to really immerse themselves in a game anymore. And a lot of times you hear reviewers say how much they lament how much they have to get through, and oh no, March and April is going to be horrible and all this kind of thing. With there's some mild sarcasm to that, but also it's like they can't dive into a game as deeply as they may want to because of the nature of their job. Whereas people like you and I, who have normal 9 to 5s and have limited free time, when we do get into a game, or at least I don't want to speak for you obviously, but me, when I get into a game, I go into that game and I complete that game before I move on, unless it's like an MMO. So I'm going to be doing a video on the games that I've been playing the most this year, and spoiler alert, I'll just tell you right now what some of them were. World of Warcraft Classic came out. I've been playing that game for 14 years, and it was great to go back and play that game in its inception and for what it was, and why the game design was so much better when WoW first came out than it is now. And I was always firmly against the idea of Classic at first. I thought the whole thing was just nostalgia bait, and I really did think that it was going to fail mostly. And I don't know, time still hasn't told the full tale of that, but at the same time, I do feel like I was wrong in a lot of my initial criticism of it. And some of it I do maintain, like, there are things that I hate about Classic WoW. There are things that are, game design things that I think are dumb about it, but there's a lot there that I love about it. Like the fact that it is, there is community there. Mostly people know your name. What I don't like about the modern incarnation is layering. That kind of ruins a lot of it. But thankfully, mostly, I think that's all gone away now. So it's just this one big mega server where everyone just gets camped all day for PvP. And that's mainly the reason I'm not playing it anymore right now, is because it's just too hard to actually play the game. I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer until all of the tryhards are out and not just PvPing all day, every day, so that I could get to a flight master. That would be nice, but I digress. When I've had time, I've been playing that. I've also been playing a lot of things on my Switch. I keep telling my brother to get a Switch, and he insists that it's a platform not worth investing in. And he's like, there's like maybe 2 games I would play on that. And maybe I'm sure there's a lot of people that think that way too. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are not, they don't care about what Nintendo has to offer, and totally understand that your game time can only go to so many things. And if Nintendo isn't high on that priority list, then I understand. But me, Nintendo was my first big system that we got mini games for. My first system technically was the Intellivision. We had a He-Man for that, and I remember playing that at my dad's house. Obviously, my mom and my biological father broke up when I was like 4 or 5. But anyway, I played that at his house because he had a Sega Genesis and he had an Intellivision. So the Intellivision was technically the first thing I ever played, because that was originally in the house. But then later we got the original Nintendo, and I want to say that my mom bought that for us. I'm pretty sure she bought that for us. And so Nintendo was my original system, so I'm very, I don't want to say loyal to Nintendo, but I love first-party Nintendo games. So I'll always get whatever system that they put out. I don't care. One of my biggest disappointments, speaking of Nintendo this year, has been the new Pokemon. Man, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Like, this is a tangent, but I guess since this is a very ranty video anyway, I'm just gonna, go into it. What the fuck happened to Pokemon? I mean, they've always been easy games, but I feel like between Sun and Moon and now this one, X and Y wasn't even this easy. These games are just so fucking simple now. I mean, they're like the whole everyone gets XP, and you don't even have to really focus on cultivating your team. You just steamroll the game, and you can make the argument that the game Pokemon has never been hard, quote unquote. I'm not asking for Dark Souls and Pokemon here, people. Like, don't misrepresent what I'm saying. I'm saying it should be a little harder. It could stand to have a little bit more difficulty, right? Like, do we need EXP share in this game? At least let me, feel like I'm developing a bond with, the Pokemon. Like, let me fucking raise the damn things. And they, like, all these, they have a lot of shit in there that's just, like, a little bit more for the weebs, I think. Like, going to the camp and feeding the Pokemon and petting them and all that shit. Okay, look, if I wanted to play Nintendogs and Pokemon, you should make a separate game for that. I don't know. I'm fine with it being in the game, and it is basically completely optional to a degree. But it feels like when you give me a system in a game, I feel obligated to partake in that system. I know that's a me thing. I understand that, but I do feel that I want to experience the full breadth of the game as it was designed. And if there's an element to a game that's like that, then I feel compelled to partake in it. Obviously, after trying it a few times, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. But then you see, like, the benefits to doing that later on in the game, and you're like, okay, I don't want to do this at all. So I've just decided, not doing it. I haven't even beat the game yet because, honestly, the simplicity of it has been a big turnoff for me. Now, there was that huge kerfuffle about the Pokedex not being fully in the game, the national Pokedex. And if you're not familiar with Pokemon, it's every single Pokemon in the game is categorized by region, but then you also have the umbrella of all of them. Like if you're in a real world, you don't necessarily categorize butterflies, or you categorize butterflies by their region or their area, but you also say as a family or as a species. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. Butterflies in general, right? So this is all the Pokemon ever in existence, and in previous games you have had the national Pokedex. You have been able to get every single Pokemon. You got to catch them all. They let you catch them all. This is the first time in a long while where they said, no, we're only putting in X amount of Pokemon, and that's it. And that's all that's going to be in this game right now. I mean, they could always add, I don't know, it's called Sword and Shield right now. They're going to have Pokemon Armor or Catapult, whatever that comes out, whatever the penultimate version of this generation is, and they can then introduce every Pokemon. That's still a possibility. But regardless, a lot of people were really mad about that. My stance on that is I don't care that all of the Pokemon weren't in the game. I know that's controversial, but to me, having a more succinct group of Pokemon that make more sense for that region is more immersive for me. And like I said earlier, I'll take immersion over mechanics any day of the week. And I feel like this was a good design choice for the sake of the story. Now, you can obviously make arguments, well, it was because they cheaped out. They just didn't they have the models. I've seen, a lot of the stuff online. They have the models, they have the capability, they just chose not to do it. Okay, fair, but it's also their right to do that. They are the game designers, and they felt like this would be a better experience overall for the sake of the game. And you can disagree with that. Completely I understand where you're coming from. Believe me, there are Pokemon that were omitted that I wish were in the game, but the majority of the original Mons that I liked are in the game. So that's a quick tangent on Pokemon Sword and Shield. Very, very disappointed with the game overall, mostly because of the difficulty. And can we stop having some fucking goofy battle mechanic in every game? Like, I know you need to switch it up. I want that too, but I don't want, well, here's the fucking Z move or the Gigantamax or whatever stupid gimmick they come up with. I fucking hate that. Make battle with the existing Pokemon more dynamic in the sense of maybe you let me control them, not like Pokemon or Pokken Tournament, but maybe it plays more like the new Final Fantasy VII remake, right? Where like your Pokemon is controllable and you have an input that happens, and maybe you then introduce some sort of mechanic for distance and stuff, kind of like how what was it? Oh, shit. What was the Miyazaki-esque game that came out? Ni no Kuni. Kind of like that. You can kind of make it like that, but maybe a little bit more than that. Like amp that up a bit. That to me is enough to make that game feel different if you introduce a more dynamic battle system, dynamic battle system without saying, here's this ridiculous new gimmick in the game that most people aren't going to remember, and it's not going to be utilized as soon as this generation is over. I hate that. I like the idea of doing new things, don't get me wrong, but I don't like the idea that the ideas are abandoned wholesale for the sake of doing something new, just for the sake of doing it new. If you're making something good in a franchise that has some continuity, I would prefer it if you just refined what was there and continued it and continue refining it. And you can argue that that's been done with gimmicks like this, but no, I maintain that they're gimmicks and they're not actually that beneficial or additive to the experience of Pokemon. I actually think they're derivative, but that's just me. That's my opinion on that. But largely, the Switch has been excellent this year. We've been getting some awesome retro game releases. We've got the Collection of Mana release. This is the first time we can officially play Trials of Mana, is what they're calling it, but Secret of Mana 3, Second Densetsu 3, or Second Densetsu 3, for the first time in North America. And I've been playing that, and fucking, I love it. It's been so good. And I've played a little bit on emulators for it before, but I always felt like, I don't know, there was something, I felt like I wasn't playing the game. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I always felt like if I'm not playing my region's release for a game, that I'm not really playing it. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but I prefer it to be, here's the official box, here's the official manual for it, here's the official cartridge, this is the game, here it is, it's yours. To me, that I don't know. There's something there for me with that. I don't know what it is, but I like that. So we got that. The new Star Ocean, not new, but the re-release of the remake of the original Star Ocean that came out on the PSP was ported to the Switch recently. I haven't picked it up yet. I'm going to be picking it up tomorrow. It should be Friday. And I can't wait to play that game because I've never played it before. Even when it came out on PSP, I didn't buy it. I bought Star Ocean Second Story because I used to own that on the PlayStation 1, and I fucking loved that game. It's Star Trek but in a JRPG. I mean, I'm all about it. I mean, look at this. Like, I'm all about it. And I am really looking forward to playing that. Lots of other, tons of random stuff came out on the Switch that I've been playing just a lot of. I did have to sell my PlayStation 4 and my original Switch, actually. I did sell those back when I was going through that hard time with my Lymes disease and I had no money. I sold all of my gaming systems. So the only one that I've been able to reacquire since then was my Switch. So I haven't really been playing too much on the PS4, and that sucks because, man, have I really been wanting to play Monster Hunter World Iceborne. I love the Monster Hunter games to death. I've been playing them off and on since the original on the PlayStation 2. My brother actually got deeper into them because when he was deployed, he was in the Air Force, by the way. When he was deployed over in Germany and stuff, he had modded his PSP to play a lot of stuff that was out at the time, but he would also get whatever new Monster Hunter game came out. So he's been the more consistent, I guess, banner bearer of the franchise out of our family. But when Monster Hunter 4 came out on the 3DS, I mean, I have like 300 to 400 hours in that game because me and my brother and his friend Kevin, we played it all the fucking time. I also played with my good buddy Rusty. Shout out Rusty. We need to play more Monster Hunter together. So I'm really looking forward to Iceborne coming out on the PC because I still have my PC and I'll be able to play it on this for sure. And yeah, but I am going to have to get a PS4 probably around March because, we're getting, Last of Us is going to be coming out, but more importantly, Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be coming out, and I will not, I swear I'll sell my kidney to make sure that I can play that game. So I'm really looking forward to playing that. But yeah, so I'm doing a video a little bit more specifically telling you which games specifically I've been spending the most time in this year, but so that's coming up. Segueing into list videos, I'm going to be doing a video on my favorite metal albums of 2019. I haven't really owned up to the banner where it's above the channel where it says, metal, comics, etc. I've mostly talked about comic stuff and Star Wars on this channel, but I am a huge metalhead. I love metal, especially black metal, death metal. I stay away from the core suffix stuff. I'm not a huge grind metal or metalcore fan or any of that shit, but I am a big fan of black metal, death metal, atmospheric black metal, all that kind of stuff. And there have been a lot of excellent releases this year that I want to talk about, and for the existing audience that I have here on this channel, they're probably none of I don't want to say none, but I don't think a lot of them will care. But I'm gonna put the video out anyway because, like I said in my one channel update video after my last Jedi video went viral, this is a me channel, and I'm gonna talk about shit that I like. So just be prepared for that, because I want to talk about the top 20 albums that I've been listening to this year for metal. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of other kind of music too, mostly like synthwave and shit like that, but definitely want to talk about upcoming metal albums, or not upcoming metal albums, but albums that I've loved coming soon. I'm not sure when those videos are going to go live, but I'm going to be recording them between today and tomorrow, hopefully, and we'll get them out, in a timely manner. So yeah, really cool. It's the end of the year. It's the end of the decade. 2019. We're going to be rolling into 2020. So I've been reflecting, going through all the stuff that's been happening in my life recently about what I want to do with life. If you've lost anyone very important to you, that maybe this isn't true for everybody. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I've felt my mortality more, and I guess the grand scheme of life a bit more. And I want to better that. So next year, and I think I've said this before on this channel, I can't remember if I have or not, but I'm going back to school next year. I'm going to be going to hopefully get my CCNA, my Cisco Systems Certified Network Administrator license or certificate. I'm not sure how that's going to be, but I think it's going to be 2 years of schooling. It might be more, because when I went to school, for those who don't know, I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and I wanted to be an animator. I draw a lot. I still do. I still paint a lot of minis and stuff. I still have my paints and stuff up here. I'm a big fan. I'm a big art fan and artist. So I went to an art school because that's what I thought I wanted to do, and I wanted to between animation and being a game designer or a concept artist or whatever, it was between those two things, and being in that environment was just super stimulating, and it was great. But the reality is that school wasn't good. It was horrible. I mean, the curriculum that they had was scattershot, and if anyone else has gone to an art institute school, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The departments that managed the money didn't know how to manage the money. Like, you'd constantly get contacted by these people and then they'd be like, "Hey, you owe us money." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, why do I owe you money? I thought that this was all taken care of for blah blah blah." Excuse me. And they were like, "No, well, actually, we fucked up and blah, blah, blah. Sorry, our bad, but yeah, you owe us money." I'm like, "What?" Like, that shit would happen all the time. And then randomly, they would send you a check and say, like, "Hey, we owe you money." And that, maybe this is just normal of college. I'm not sure, because I only have that one experience to go off of, but it was extremely frustrating to not know consistently what I had to pay out on a consistent basis, because when I signed up, they initially had told me that I'm never going to have to pay out of pocket for anything, because it's all going to be put towards these loans, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I went into deep debt from that school. I ended up dropping out of that school. I was pretty close to getting, well, I mean, I had my associates by that point, but I didn't push enough to go towards the actual, the end requirements for that. So I ended up not getting anything at all, and dropped out, and was working at GameStop for the interim. I started working at GameStop when I was in school, and I was like, "Hey, I like having money. Money's great. I love video games. This is a great job, blah, blah, blah." And yeah, I'll probably do a GameStop video at some point. I know they're like weirdly trendy or whatever, but like anybody who has worked at GameStop and looks and reflects on the company, I feel like has a lot to say about it, and I have a lot to say about that. So there's probably going to be a GameStop video from me at some point. So I worked there, worked at a comic shop later, but yes. So ended up with a mountain of debt. It's taken a very long time to get that under control, and thankfully I'm in a position now where in the future I will be able to go back to school, and all of my loan, or the remainder of my loans, I think I only owe like $4,000 left from, I think what I owed was like 50 something. So I've paid that down quite a bit, and we're at a point now where I feel like, okay, I've readjusted, realigned, and I can now target something that will actually pay you good money. Because right now where I work, I make good money where I work. Don't get me wrong. I make, for what it is, for it being retail, I make good money, but it's not going to be anywhere near what I could earn if I pursue this career path. So 2020 is going to see me going back to school. It's also hopefully going to see me moving out from my current environment and into a place with my friends. We'll see. The details for that have not been hammered out because I don't know. I would prefer not to live too far away from where I'm going to be going to school, but we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. And throughout all of that, I will be going to work as well. So even what little free time I have now will be completely compromised between studying and school. Another big thing is fitness. I was really, right after the breakup I had from my previous girlfriend, I went hard into that because I think that's just what you do. Like after a breakup, you just need something to make you feel good about yourself, that you're not worthless and you're not a piece of shit. So fitness was very good for that. But I think I looked at fitness for that reason only, like as a distraction, and that's not a healthy way to view fitness, right? Like it needs to be a lifestyle change. So I understand all the macro level discussions that you have to have about fitness, but the micro execution was where I have failed and slipped up. Now, I can easily dismiss a lot of those things by saying, clearly the last couple of years of your life have been absolutely miserable, and you've gone through a lot of bullshit, and et cetera, reasons. Yes, that's true, but I have also used that as reasons, and I've used that as a crutch for why I haven't gone as hard as I should into, committing to fitness. So 2020 is going to be a whole new start for that. I'm not committing to forever for it. I'm not making any grandiose declarations. I am saying 2020 will see me focus on that, and it will be a daily, or at least every other day, it will be a focus in my life in some form or another. And the reasons for that are twofold. Obviously, I'd like to live longer. Second reason, I'm hoping that by staying more active, that I don't have as much issue if I happen to develop rheumatoid arthritis on top of my Lyme's disease, because that would just be catastrophic. Something that attacks your joints plus something that attacks your joints equals I might as well put a bullet in my head. So I don't want to get to that point. So I'm thinking that healthy diet, exercise will alleviate any compound issues that may arise from that. So that's there's some reasoning for that. What else did I want to say about that? Oh, yeah, 2020. Another big thing too has been I don't know. I've felt kind of this I don't know, lethargic energy in my life, like this, like you need to be doing more kind of pull. And I have a good friend of mine who I used to play music a lot. I was right at my senior year of high school, I got into a band that was signed to blackmetal.com records, and the band was called Sin Origin, and I was a session guitarist with them. I met them through an online message board, and we had a lot of similar interests, and it was excellent. They would come and pick me. I didn't have a car at the time, so they would drive. I lived in Ohio at that point, and they lived in a northern part of Ohio, and they would come to pick me up and come back home. And you're talking like it was like an hour drive to come get me, almost an hour drive to come get me every day or every weekend. They'd pick me up on Friday, and I would stay through until Sunday night. So, and we would just play music all the time. But anyway, so I played a lot of music, and things went south with that band. There were some internal strife between it was two brothers that were in the band, and there was some issues that went on there. It's not my place to really talk about that too much, but things had happened, and that's when I decided to leave that band and go to college. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go do game design then. So, you know, pie in the sky dreams. And I had a great girlfriend at the time. That's right when I met, really who I considered to be my first girlfriend. I had girlfriends before that, and actually, that's not true. I can't really say that because my first girlfriend and her family, they took me in when things were really bad in my home life, and I lived with them throughout, at least 2 years of high school. So that was technically my first big girlfriend, but big girlfriend, my first girlfriend. So my second girlfriend, technically, was excellent. It was very much a mirrored situation. I moved out here with her and then with her family, and I basically have been friends with them ever since. Obviously, that was many years ago that we had went our separate ways, but we were together for almost 7 years, and she's still a very important person in my life. Her family is still very important to me, and they really have kind of adopted me in some way. In some ways, I don't know. They've just always made me feel very included and very comfortable, and yeah. But what I meant to say with that was, at the time, yeah, I had there was a lot of things going right for me at that time when the band was going on. So now I have a lot more of an open horizon. There's no woman tying me down. There's no necessary responsibilities in terms of things that I can't work around. You have work, you have bills, things like that you have to do. But I have more or less an open horizon, so I'm going to be taking full advantage of that. And I'm reflecting on the last decade, between 2010 to 2009 or 2020. It was very much a trial in finding myself again. I would say from 2000 to 2010 was one trial, and then from 2010 to 2020 was another trial. And this is probably true of throughout your whole life, right? You have these periods. You can have them through milestones and whatever sort of beginning and end cap points that you have for these definitions for yourself. But for the conversation's sake, we'll just say this decade and this period, of my life. Was finding a new normal and redefining my politics, especially, and redefining my worldview and my goals and what is important to me. And it's been very helpful. So going into the next decade, I want to be able to look back in 2030 and be like, that was the big transformative, you got into your career, you got everything taken care of moment that I'm hoping for. We'll see. You don't know what's going to happen in life, right? I mean, as what I've gone through recently should, emphasize, is that you can't anticipate everything, and you can be somewhat mentally prepared for it in some ways, but not everyone can. Everyone's different. So I'm going to do the best I can to be as prepared going into this next decade. I want to start off on the right foot and just do the best I can throughout it. 2020. I'm also scheduled to go to Disneyland in 2020. We're gonna go see the Star Wars stuff. We're gonna go do that whole thing. Meet a bunch of my friends. I haven't been on an actual trip vacation like that in some years. The last time was when I went to Seattle, and that went horribly. So I'm hoping nothing ridiculous happens this time. So we're gonna go to Disney. I'm going to be saving up for that trip. That's not going to be until September of next year, so it's going to be a little bit of a ways off, but I need to save up money for that. And yeah, so there's that. Yeah, I mentioned briefly earlier politics. So a lot of people have asked me through messages. They've seen my interactions online, and they've even a lot of my acquaintances or friends, some of them are friends that I know in real life. They really don't know where I align on my political positions. And to kind of give you a general outline of where that began was, before 2012, before 2012, I would say I was a Democrat. I would say that I voted for Obama, and at least in his first term. And, before that, I didn't really have that much of an interest in politics. I was very much in that crowd of well, we'll just watch Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart and whoever they make fun of. Those are my political opinions, and that's kind of a cop out because it's not entirely true, but it is to a degree, like where it was like, oh well, they're making this sort of reasonable, they would always do this. They'll highlight someone being unreasonable from a certain perspective, and make the audience laugh and think, ha ha ha, look how unreasonable they're being. We're the reasonable ones. Look how great we are. And that's only been magnified since Trump took office. These people have lost their minds, and I abhor late night talk shows. I'm not kidding. If there's one like form of entertainment that I would blast off this planet, it would probably be late night TV, because it is just Trump all the fucking time. Nothing's funny anymore. But anyway, it's probably funny to hyper liberals, to the red coats and the commies out there, but it's not funny to me. That's not some of the stuff. Trump can be funny, like he's very meme worthy a lot of times. So sometimes it can be funny. But anyway, before Gamergate, I know we're gonna get into that here. So before Gamergate happened, I considered myself a Democrat, but Gamergate happened, right? And you saw the absolute smorgasbord of collusion, and the gates were flung open on what really goes on behind the scenes in the enthusiast press for video games, and the collusion that took place, the bending over backwards for hyper leftist political agendas like third wave feminism. You saw especially Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian and their ilk come out of the woodwork and demand what amounted to reparations for the entire female gender, and all that shit went down, right? We all know what happened in Gamergate. It spiraled into its own thing eventually and became this sort of like men's rights movement kind of deal, which I wasn't on board with, but that happened, and it was kind of the catalyst for my political awakening, and I have no shame saying that, because it was. You finally started to see then you had other people show up, like the Internet Historian's video came out. Jim, when his video came out, it really highlighted a lot of that. You see Sargon of Akkad show up, you see Milo Yiannopoulos, a lot of the kind of what I would consider the reasonables start to point out why the things that are happening in politics are bad for society, and you just had this explosion of opinionated political YouTubers come out of the woodwork. It was great. I'm Razor Fist, I watch a lot of his content too, and Styx Hexenhammer, love that guy. But anyway, so you have all this happen, and then you see what happens during the Trump election, where people, the accusations coming out of the left, it blew my mind. Like, it really opened up my eyes to, I guess, the kind of worldview that Democrats, especially here in the United States, have, and progressives. Progress at any cost. Essentially, it's a very much total war mentality of, if you're not with us, you're against us. And you can argue that's always been American politics, or guys, even politics at large, but I'm not privy necessarily to the vagaries of European politics. I have vague understandings of it, but I'm not like in the shit, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not British. A Brit's going to know more about their politics than I do. Regardless, so you have this kind of this liberalist movement come out. Sargon of Akkad populated that, I think, and Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin, and then you have more of this higher production quality of people bucking this leftist narrative of progressivism at any cost, and it was a perfect hurricane of that and third wave feminism intersectionality, this ideology coming to a fore that I couldn't stand. I just vehemently disagree with any ideology that purports that I am owed something because of the color of my skin, or what's or because of what's between my legs. I don't owe you anything, first of all, and the idea that progress will not happen unless your guy or girl becomes president is ridiculous. A lot of the ad hominems that they've thrown at Trump are baseless, and you can say a lot of the things about the guy. The guy is a narcissist. The guy is very, self-absorbed. He's a Rockefeller Republican. He has his issues, but a lot of the stuff that they invented about him were just as ridiculous as, the birther shit. It's just as ridiculous as that crap. And those aren't hills I would die on. But these, and then to top it all off, you saw the rise of, no joke, actual communism and socialism in the left, and that becoming a big component of their political ideology. And it's not a far cry to say that is what the most, what's pushed the most in their media. You have people like Bernie Sanders. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but his policies are fucking retarded. Advocating for the 1% or whatever, this sort of, straw man that he has invented in his head as the enemies of Americans, needing to be taxed a certain amount to be quote-unquote equal with everybody else, but that's not how proportions work. And then you get into all the vagaries of that with these people that don't understand economics, that abhor capitalism for some reason, right? I'm sorry you hate the system that has made the world as progressed as it is, but okay. And they're fucking turning that knob to 11. I mean, it's ridiculous when you point to people, especially out like Venezuela. Of course, that's not true. No, it is. First, you can say it's not June. I know you're showing head. I like her content a lot, but again, a lot of the shit that she believes is just wrong, and I don't agree with. So you can see the rise of this social democrat crap come out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere. It's clearly coming from the hyper partisan, hyper progressive side of the left here in the States. And I take a more lowercase liberal / libertarian view of things, meaning I'm more for independent freedom and personal freedom than I am for government systems telling me how to live my life and what I need to do. I'm not so far libertarian that I think the government is useless and we shouldn't have programs for things and all that. There are libertarians that take it, I would argue, too far. But little bits of libertarianism and little bits of liberalism and conservatism, all these things should make you, in my opinion, someone who understands that there needs to be a balance of things. Because when you sway that scale too much in one direction, history proves time and time again, only bad things will happen. Rome, as great as it was, it fell. I mean, you look at the Nazis. Oh yeah, they galvanized their country, all right. Everyone got behind that war machine, all right, sure. But what ended up happening? They became the enemies of the world. So, you can't. There has to be a balance. And then the same, you look at communist countries. You look at China. You look at throw a dart. Russia. You have a people, well, mostly in China, you have people that are suppressed. Look what's happening in Hong Kong, suppressed by these views that they think the state knows what's best. And I'm never, ever going to be on the side of people who would advocate for that. So, politics especially have gotten, it's on everyone's lips, it's on everyone's minds. And I still feel like I'm taking a more balanced look at things. But as soon as I talk shit about feminism, everyone loses their goddamn minds. They think that I hate women for some reason, or they extrapolate a lot. I mean, they really build straw men out of a position that I might hold, when it's just couldn't be further from the truth. And especially when I say things like, you're not owed anything because you're black, or because you have slanted eyes, or you're white. You're not owed anything because of that. The content of your character tells you what you're owed and what you're not. Like, if you're a good person, I think you are earned respect. You should earn respect. because you do things that are respectful. If you're respectful of other people, I will respect you. It's this very, I don't know, anymore this seems like an extreme position, but I feel like the less that I request of the government to be involved in the shit in my life, the better it goes. And just from the reading that I've done, that tends to be the healthiest perspective on living your life in a society. You know, when we live in a society, yeah, like, but and then you have people like the Young Turks out there who purport these absolutely ridiculous things. You know, they are for equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity, and I am firmly against that ideology. I think everyone should be given the choice or the opportunity to succeed, but if you can't do it, if you're not smart enough, if you're not capable enough to do it, it is nobody else's fault. You can't then extrapolate into all of these sort of weird, you know, there's no end to it. It's because your parents were this, and it's because you lived here, and it's because blah, blah, blah. Eventually, the mountain of excuses that you have for not succeeding become insurmountable. And that, to me, a lot of that, and there are portions of that I can kind of see, like bits, but not all of it. And I feel like eventually it becomes a cop-out, and it becomes this idea that we all should have this style of vehicle and we should live in this style of home, and it becomes this sort of this communist utopia, because that's where that slippery slope takes you, is the government knows what's best. I'll elect people in the government that will in no way use their power in a heavy-handed way to exert their own moral principles or their own ideas. No, they represent what I think. Okay, sure, if you want to be that naive, fine, but I'm not. So that's my stance on that. And largely, when you see me critical of, like, again, mostly hyper leftist progressivism, especially in Hollywood, especially in the gaming industry, in the fields of consumerist things that I like, I'm going to push back against that, because you're creating this fake narrative for the populace that this is what is acceptable and cool, when it's cringy and bad and it's not good, and we all see why. I mean, point to any film made in the last 8 years and you can see elements of why this is stupid. You know, you have one of the tropes I love in TV anymore is, you know, the strong female woman. That's kind of a oxymoron. The overly strong independent woman, where she is just as capable as the man in terms of physical combat. She's out there punching on the front lines, and she's unstoppable, right? That's a fucking fairy tale. Like, the vast majority of that shit will never happen and can never happen. So they put out this idea that, of course, they want to make little girl, look what you can be, little girl. Look what representation. Oh, are you gay? Do you like having sex with the same gender? Well, here, now you have a character too. Okay, I'm fine with that on paper, but the execution sucks. The execution is just beats you over the head with this crap. It's ceaseless. It's like, we get it. All right, if you're a dude who is gay, you like sucking dick. I understand. Cool. Do your own thing. I'm totally cool with them having characters in movies that are like that. But my God, does it have to be so heavy-handed? Because that's the problem. It's really heavy-handed in its execution, and it's an overemphasis of a minority of human beings, and that is my biggest problem. It magnifies what is a true minority. I hate that. And that's besides the bad writing too. I mean, there's awful writing in these movies. Oh my God, like Black Panther, I still can't get over them. Captain Marvel, these movies just were so bad. Anyway, so that's my little rant on politics. I am for more personal liberty, and I don't want as much government intervention. I am for protectionist policies. I want to put America first. This is the greatest nation on the planet in the history of the planet, and I intend to keep it that way, or at least attempt to persuade those around me that is the best way to keep it going. This globalist one nation view of the world is anathema, in my opinion, to the cultures that we have on this planet. And I'm not advocating for mono ethnicity or anything like that, or anything like Stalin or Hitler-esque. I'm advocating for pro-nationality, for sure. You shouldn't be ashamed of the nation that you're in, Uh, Especially one that is as winning as we are. And if you don't think that, I'm sorry, you can leave. I had a couple friends who were just like, I can't wait to move to Canada when Trump becomes president. Oh, I can't wait to move. They're still here. They are still here. Their cars are still parked in the same parking spots. They still go to the same places to eat. All their life went about its fucking day, and they're still here. But they're still complaining. They're still bitching about everything. That's you turn on, these late night talk shows. You turn on CNN. They're still bitching about everything under the sun that doesn't affect them or us as an American people. But it's fine. Hey, it's media. You're allowed to consume that stuff if you want. Cool. I think it's retarded, but you can do what you want. But they're still here. That's the important point. They didn't move. And I don't think they will move when Trump wins next year. This whole impeachment thing that's going on, it's just a fucking circus. They didn't prove anything. Trump, they can't. That's why the Senate's going to acquit him, because they didn't prove anything. Accusation is not proof. So, and it's dangerous. It is dangerous, the amount of power that we've given these people to be able to just levy this horse and pony show at the flick of a fucking switch. That's besides my thinking. The executive branch has way too much power. Politics are dirty anymore, but I feel like the average person, especially the people that I talk to in real life, more or less agree with me on matters of personal liberty and policy making. I think what ends up with Democrats is they get too stuck in the weeds on shit like climate change and stuff like that. They get too stuck on conservation stuff, and that stuff has a place, but it's always cranked to 11. It's never moderate, and that's the problem. You can say the same thing about the right too. Don't get me wrong. Right now, yes, I am technically a registered Republican, but I don't agree with all shit that Republicans believe in. I am not religious in the sense, I'm not a Christian. I am an atheist agnostic, first of all. So I don't have the answer, is what I'm saying with my religious belief system. I don't have the answer, and I'm not going to tell you what the answer is. But I want you to be able to express yourself, go to your mosques, your synagogues, your churches, your temples, all you want, as long as the government's left out of it. I don't want my tax dollars going to you. I don't want I don't want to fund that through my paycheck. That's my argument against Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood should be privately funded. The government should not be fucking involved in that. Even I don't care what benefit it's offering society. It's not a government regulated system. And if you're not willing to be regulated by the government, as horrible as that is, and believe me, I agree, government regulation is shit. But that's kind of why I occupy the positions that I have. Anyway, unless you're willing to be taxed and taken to task by the government for that stuff, you should not accept government funding, or taxpayers' dollars who do not support you. I support a Christian's right to not want to support an organization that offers abortions. I think it should be a mutual choice that the baby carrier, the woman, has with hopefully her significant other. But if he's not there, then I default to the mom's choice. I understand that's not a popular opinion on the right, but I don't care, because I'm not here to wave my flag for Republicans. I'm here to tell you what my principles are. And my principles are that I think you are the ultimate determinator of your destiny, and the weeds that you get into on is a child alive at this point and blah 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 and all these, scientifically you can say when it has a heartbeat, all that kind of stuff. Fine. You can debate that until the sun comes up for all eternity, but you're not going to convince everybody of your position of that. All you can do is say, I believe this, therefore I will never do this. So, cool, but don't impose that on everybody else. Don't get the fucking government involved, because they're just going to fuck it up. They're just going to make it worse, because they always do. So, it's oh my god. Porn. That's a great segue. Let's talk about what's going on right now online. If you're involved in any of the online discussions, especially on Twitter, and all of you have a lot of pundits on the right who are saying, they're bringing this morality clause into a discussion of pornography, and they're basically saying, think of the kids. Everything comes down to think of the children. And I'm like, this is the same fucking moral panic that they went through in the fucking 50s and 60s. Like, it's echoes of that. Listen, here's my spiel on pornography. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Look it up. Thelema. You do you. If you are not a raging psychopath and you view porn in a healthy way, why should the government be involved in that? I don't care if, you know, Susie Q's kid ended up looking at it from an iPad from Susie Q's friend at school. That has nothing to do with policy making. That is a failure of parenting on at least one of those ends, and we have nothing to do with that. So do not involve the government in... It's so funny. That's so hypocritical. You see these people run and beg the government for help after, you know, like Mark Walsh, saying how, like, oh, the government's terrible at regulation. Why would we ask them to do X, Y, and Z? And then go and beg for the banning of porn or more restrictions imposed by the government. Fuck you. Like, you raging hypocrite. Like, this has nothing to do, like... Oh my god, Lauren Chen the other day, I was commenting on her video. She had a live stream talking about her positions on this, and it basically amounted to a moral center. Fine, have your moral center, believe what you want to believe, but do not involve the fucking government. That's all I'm saying. Keep them out of it. If you would like to regulate that in your own household, that is your decision. But as soon as you start saying, we need to help the kids, or we need to think of the kids, you begin climbing a slippery slope that and this was exactly the comment that I said, you begin climbing a slippery slope that only involves more government regulation, and spoiler alert, the government sucks at regulation. So don't do it. Stop trying to impose your morality on other people. I don't think porn's immoral. I think in the vast majority of instances, you have consenting adults performing an act, a sex act, for entertainment purposes. What the fuck is the big... They constantly trot out this shit like, oh, but sex trafficking, and oh, but look at what it's destroying the moral fiber of America. No, it's fucking not. No, it's absolutely not. And then, like, they'll bring out some study conducted by, you know, some person. Well, it has a detrimental effect on kids age blah blah blah, and there's this specific sample size. It doesn't matter. That's still not everybody. That's still not everyone you fucking know. So I'm not saying you can't extrapolate to some degree from these things to create policy, because obviously you can. You know, I'm not an ANCAP. I'm not saying you can't make no policies. I'm saying if you're going to enact policy, it needs to be done in a way that is with scalpel precision. And when you're talking about something like porn, something that is designed for adults, only to be consumed by adults, that kids may or may not find at some point, you can't regulate. That's like alcohol. You're talking about prohibition. You might as well be having the prohibition discussion, because the government says, okay, fine, because the moral fiber of our society is on the downturn, we are going to ban the sale of alcohol. How fucking well did that turn out? Right? That turned out great, didn't it? No, it was stupid. It was retarded. Look what's going on right now with e-cigarettes. It's also stupid. It's the government getting involved because other corporations have a vested interest of keeping these other corporations who are making this product down, when it should just be a product that is available. Okay? I'm not entirely for a completely free market, but I am for a mostly free market, and I think when you coerce and use power to affect law in this way, all you're doing is creating monopolies, and you can't have runaway capitalism, okay? Like, I'm not 100% for all aspects of it, but it is the best system ever designed, and I will defend that to my death. I intend to see that it continues and succeeds. But you start begging the government for help and intervention in what I consider to be a personal matter, especially if you're talking about something from a moral perspective. Your moral is subjective. It's the most subjective thing. You can't tell me that your morals trump my morals just because you can cite some study. I'll cite another study. Okay, now we're at a crossroads. So... And let's remove studies completely. It's your fucking opinion that you don't want kids to look at porn. Fine, I don't want kids to look at porn either, not necessarily, but I don't think it's the end of the fucking world if they do. Like, these people I need a drink. Give me 1 second. I'm kind of parched. Okay. These people think that okay, oh fuck, I lost my train of thought. So you had moral centers, whatever. It's all subjective. My morality is not your morality. Your morality may come from some sort of Christian dogma or what, some religious dogma that you believe in, and that's where you feel morals come from. Okay, you can believe that. That's fine, but I'm not a religious person, and religious ideals do not affect my day-to-day life necessarily. At least I'm not actively partaking in them, and I'm a functional, healthy citizen of this society, as most people are. I know plenty of atheists or agnostic individuals like myself who function that way and get along and are happy and live fulfilling lives. There's this idea on the right that if you keep doing X, Y, and Z, it inevitably always 100% leads to this other thing, like the downfall of man or whatever it is. You can make arguments saying these things are helpful for society, we should encourage these things more, etc. But as soon as you start telling me that I want this policy in place for this and my perspective on this is the only one, I'm out. I'm fucking out, because that's totalitarian, authoritarian nonsense. And especially when we're talking about something that's from a moral perspective. So, porn. Parents, teach your kids, talk to them, educate them. If they happen to come across something like this, tell them what the rules are. Porn is not allowed in your house, etc. What society's rules are for porn. You know, again, this is a comment that I made earlier on the Lauren Chen's video, but that there are rules and that we need to follow for this. And again, I'm not an anarchist. I think rules are a good thing, at least, you know, the more reasonable ones. And it's reasonable to tell your kid, I don't want you looking at porn while you're in this house, or while you're in my household, etc., while you are a child, while you don't have the right to vote, whatever. But the point that I'm saying is reality doesn't give a shit about your parenting. It doesn't care that you every day sit with your kid in their bed and you read them a psalm from the Bible. It doesn't care. That child will eventually see things, experience things that are outside of your control. And what you need to accept is you have a responsibility for making sure that their reaction to reality isn't adverse, isn't against the welfare of that child or others. So, and that's all I think you can do as a parent. You can provide them with the tools to succeed. My mom was a military officer in the Navy. We had rules in the house. I understood these rules, but she didn't treat me like I was a retard. She didn't treat me like I was dumb. Like she would explain things to me in a way that made sense. Well, Jim, this is why you can't run out in traffic. You'll die. Jim, this is why you can't put your hand on a hot stove. I did it anyway, and I found out it was hot. And it hurt. There's a coddling that's going on, again, coming mostly from these pseudo-intellectuals and psychologists on the left who seem to think that the more you can control a child, the more prime the outcome will be. And that's, in my experience, overwhelmingly not the case. I've seen these parents who have taken a very hard stance on, no physical enforcement at all. Some of them have turned out fine, some of them haven't. And the moral of that is that everybody is different. Your child is different. Your child's going to be different from the child next door, etc., etc. I mean, if you can read things like The Giver and have a structured society where everyone's played out the same way, but eventually, what happens? Neo, The Matrix. Someone breaks the code. Someone steps out of line and revolutionizes and changes things. That's human nature that you're going against. So, a bit of a tangent there, but what I'm saying is, do the best you can. Prepare your child as best as you can, and that's all you can really expect. And if they, and again, you see people like Mark Walsh and all these people saying like, well, eventually they become porn addicts, and eventually that leads to cursing and heavy rock music and Dungeons and Dragons. Like that is the sort of moral panic that's being put forth by this discussion that I'm 100% against. It's banal. It's insipid. It's dumb. It really it's besides the point. if you consider yourself a conservative and you're advocating for the government to step in a moral arbitration discussion like what we're having here, oof, like big oof, big time oof. Why would you do this? You've failed. And I think the reasonable position to occupy there is do what you feel is right for your child, but don't impose that on other people. No, I don't want to live in this authoritarian utopia that I'm seeing some people proffer. Yeah. So, we covered a lot today. I've been talking for a great while. This is going to be, mostly unedited. I'm going to throw up this video almost in its raw state. It's going to take 1,000 years to upload, I'm sure, but it is going to go up. Yeah, so if you're interested in metal, especially black and death metal, which is what I listen to the most, I'm going to be doing my top 20 video on that. It's going to be coming out, and then I'm going to be doing a video on what I've been playing this year, what I've been looking forward to the most this year. And then when The Mandalorian ends, I'm going to do a video review on the show as a whole, now that we'll have the whole picture. I'm going to do a review on that, and then, yeah, Rise of Skywalker, Rise of Soywalker. A lot of people have seen the leaks for that online. A lot of people have been reading the discussions. I read the leaks myself because that's how... It's weird that I live in a state where I'm like, I will gladly read all the spoilers on this movie because that's how little I care about a Star Wars project. That, to me, is crazy. But I did. I read all of the leaks, and especially this recent one that just came out. It's December 12th right now, and the one that just came out recently, coming out of Sweden, was... more or less confirmed everything, and spoiler alert, I'll just say spoilers right now, so you could just kind of skip ahead a little bit, but I'm only going to talk about this briefly. It's going to suck. It's going to be horrible. It sounds so dumb, and I'm sure the visuals are going to look nice, and the production and the budget's going to be, it's going to look cool, but there will be no substance. You are going to be getting a Hostess cupcake without any of the filling, and to me, this is going to be a mimic of The Last Jedi, and if not worse, I think it's going to be even more of a betrayal of my love for this franchise. And by the way, I love other people have pointed this out too, but I love that the marketing is focused on saying how this is an end, to a 9-film saga, and look at this, we're adding to this 9-film saga. It's the end of this saga. Listen. No Star Wars fan that I know talks about these films that way. They see them literally as the Disney Star Wars trilogy, like it's its own thing, and they don't consider it part of actual Star Wars. I mean, there are some Star Wars fans out there that think that way, and that's fine, they can. I don't agree with them, but to me, this has not been Star Wars, and yeah, so I can't wait for this to be over with. I am going to go see the movie, but I'm not going opening night. I'm not going to give them big numbers on opening. It doesn't matter if I did or not, to be honest. It's going to do billions anyway. But I'm going to go on half price Tuesday so that I feel like I'm not spending too much of my money. And I'm subscribed to Cinemark Movie Club, which means I get a free movie ticket every month. And I'm not even going to end up paying for it. Well, I am, kind of. But ultimately, I'm not getting money out of my pocket to pay for it. I guess that's not true. I kind of am. But still, regardless, I'm going on a half-price day because I don't think it deserves opening weekend, and this is the first time I'm seeing a Star Wars film not on opening day, so that's interesting. That is my tentative solution. I don't know. I might end up going to see it. It depends on what happens, on if anyone wants to, pushes me to go see it, just to see my reaction, because a lot of my friends just want to see me rage about shit, so that may end up happening. And it also would be really funny to boo the movie loudly in front of everybody else that's there enjoying their time. That's very petty, but yeah, I don't know. I really hate this movie. So, but anyways, guys, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. More content in the pipeline. Sorry it was so heavy at the beginning, but if you stuck with me throughout this entire video, thank you. Thank you so much for caring enough to watch this entire video. I really appreciate that. Your time means a lot to me. It means a lot to everybody to when I watch a content creator and they thank me for their time, I always feel I feel really good when they do that, because they know that my time is precious, and what I choose to fill that time with it matters. So if you spent your time watching this, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Please stick around. I'm sure with all the interest that I have, eventually there's going to be a video that you like come out. So even if it's not metal, or if it's not video games, maybe it's comic books, eventually I'll be talking more about that too. So yeah. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time.